who's the game bigger for today? Is it Stefanski, who we've talked about needing a win, or is it Dillon Gabriel, who at this point in his juncture and with Shedeur just breathing down his neck right now, he needs a win in a big way as well. But you've done the tape, you've dissected the all-22 when it comes to Dillon Gabriel. You said he missed a lot of shots deep, and I don't think anybody can argue with you on that. I will say the only thing in a defense of Dillon Gabriel in a weird way, the Jerry Jeudy drop cannot happen that way. That's a well-placed football. That's down the field. That's the type of play that Jerry Jeudy has to make. But for the majority of the deep throws that Dillon Gabriel had, he was sailing them, Coach. What happened there?
Well, I will say this. First of all, misses aren't always bad misses, and that's also why I'm not a huge PFF fan, though PFF have this place. Some of his misses are he took the easy one where maybe he can get the hard one, meaning that you never give up what they give you. But sometimes you got to stretch it, right? So in their levels concept, there's 3 levels. First level is always the easiest. It's a 10-yard throw. It's an easy throw, etc. Sometimes that late level 3 comes open, right? So that's where he's got to have faith now. Get that ball up and over if you see coverage, because people are going to start squatting on him because he's throwing the ball so short. Now, and some of his throws that he's throwing high. I think he throws high a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say it's height. For me, it's not his height. For me, is he's not real sure of where he's going with the football, and his fundamentals kind of lose, and he kind of
let's break that down, because you obviously played quarterback at a very high level, and I just being the football guy I am, I'm like, yeah, it had a lot to do with his height. I assumed it had a lot to do with his height. He's got to throw over the 6'7" left tackle, and he's got to find you know what I mean? And so you're like, all right, ball sailed because he had to put more on it, and it just kept sailing, basically. No touch there. How do you see this? What is different from that?
Well, I will say this. He's played with 6-7 tackles his whole college career. He's played with huge linemen, so he's learned how to do that. For me, does he overstride? Does he understride? When you don't know where you're going with the football, sometimes you always hear step at your target. Well, I think especially with Flores, they kind of tricked him a couple times, and he did a good job of, you see him almost pumping, pulling the ball down and running. It's because the defense did their job, and they kind of tricked him. So I think his fundamentals, I think he overstrides at times. I think he understrides at times. But more importantly, I think he thinks he's going one way, and he's going to really learn how to reset his feet, which having good feet, he'll be able to do that. It's just like some of the issues that Shedeur has. These are fixable things these guys have.
Didn't you tell me about feet problems with Dillon in training camp?
Yeah. I
think that was a note that you gave me in training camp.
Correct. Yeah. Same thing. And it's all those things deal with, like in college, it's like Mendoza, right? In college, it's one level throws, RPOs, one guy, reading one. This in the NFL, you're reading multiple levels, multiple guys, and these guys are throwing coverages. Half side will be in one coverage, the other side will be in this coverage. There's so many things that going through his head that when you reset your feet, you got to make sure you're fundamentally sound, because he's a guy who has really good arm talent, but he's got to use his body to throw. He's not a guy, Aaron Rodgers, who's going to flick it.
Well, right? And Stefanski's got to be seeing this, though. Stefanski's got to be seeing the idea that his feet work hasn't been good. Again, we've been talking about this now this is going on months, that his feet work hasn't been up to par.
Well, I think it will be. I think what he's seeing is now he's seeing live bullets, and he's going through his progressions, and that's on him. And I think as you see the game go along, you see him do a better job. You also see them changing the launch point with him. So obviously you get him a little bit more rhythm. And once he sees this stuff on film, all these quarterbacks, and it's okay to like Dillon and to like Shedeur, because I think both of them have similar issues with, they were in college where a lot of RPOs, and a lot of colleges, simple stuff as compared to the NFL. They're just learning. They're a young guy, 3rd-round pick, but he matches because of his footwork and his ability to throw from different launch points. Today will be a big day. Next week when we'll talk, and I'll say, hey, I didn't see any improvement, or I did, but that for me, it's fundamentals. It's not height. Height has not been the issue with Dillon Gabriel. It's been accuracy, and it's been fundamentals.
I was encouraged.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm going to be honest, I was encouraged. I thought, and listen, I am the originator of calling him an Oompa Loompa. I'm the originator of saying welfare Tua, which Nick has now adopted into Tima Tua, because I basically thought he was a knockoff version of Tua Tagovailoa. But that was college him, and I was definitely open to the idea that if he got to the pros and he got some starts, I wanted to see what Stefanski could do with him, and I just wanted to see how he'd look. And I got to say, I thought for week 1, I thought he was off to a pretty good start against a pretty good defense in what the Vikings have been able to be this year, and it doesn't get easier. Listen, the Steelers defense has not been particularly good this year, but we know it's a Steelers defense, and we know that they're good. The top 6 guys on their payroll, Coach, are all on the defensive side of the ball. Tomlin has put his resources, he's put his time, he's put his effort, he put his energy all on the defensive side of the ball, and so I imagine they're going to be much better than what they've been throughout the first stretch of the season, at least the first 4 games of the season for Pittsburgh. This is a big-time test for Dillon Gabriel today.
Well, he's going to see an odd front, which so the defensive line is going to be a little bit different. So protection has to be sound by the offensive linemen. They're going to have to help on Watt. Obviously, I look at Slay, I look at Porter, I look at these defensive backs, Ramsey. These are guys who are jumpy guys. So I'm thinking double moves. This is a great game to max protect and one man routes where you can keep 7 in and protect because they are very jumpy. They are very aggressive. But as you said about Dillon Gabriel, you used to call him Oompa Loompa. There's my classic example of prove you're right or prove you're wrong. He was going to show you that it was an Oompa Loompa.
And you're telling me it's not the height. You're telling me the height hasn't gotten anything in the way of him at this level, at least.
For me, absolutely not. I don't, because he's thrown with these. Now, they're not the level of players, but the offensive lineman, he's played at major college football. Oklahoma and Oregon were his last 2 stops. These guys are big. He's learned how to do this. This is not the issue. For me, it's can he progress week to week? Now he saw a forefront from Flores where he had a bunch of different coverages. Now he's going to see an odd front where he's got a dynamic defensive end and really dynamic players in the secondary for Pittsburgh. Now, they haven't been great. But like you said, it's Pittsburgh. They're going to be physical. They're going to be tough, and we'll see what happens. But I truly believe that if he doesn't progress today, I'd be shocked. And once again,
when you say progress, are we talking about just footwork, or are we talking about actually seeing some throws down the field and not what that last week was?
Well, I want him to take what they give. So if they take, if he takes what they give him, I'm okay with that. But if there's a first level and a third level this week, and he got that third level open, I want to see him take it. But I also want to, before I say all that aside, if it comes down to running the ball 3 times at the end of the game and you get to put the defense in, I'll do exactly the same thing they did last weekend. So I thought he did enough to win. And it wasn't about what he's going to do in the future, what he did in the past. Last week during that game against the Vikings, he put him in a chance to win. And that's all you want to do as a quarterback.
Okay, so you don't want Dillon Gabriel to basically, like main character energy? When someone makes it about themselves all the time, or even just like you don't want him to be the star of the show. You want him to be essentially he's a background character as the starting quarterback.
Well, but that's not
I'm not saying that in an insulting way. I'm just saying that in like the game plan for Stefanski. It's one of the game plans we've talked about, by the way, going into this season that Stefanski would try to emulate essentially what the Steelers do in years that don't have Aaron Rodgers or Big Ben, where they made these quarterbacks just kind of you're the B cast, you're the C cast. You're not the focal point. You're not what they're going to try to win with. It's the run game and it's defense, and then you're just going to try to see where that takes you.
Well, he's the classic example of the thing I used all the time: win with, win because of. Right. So the Browns, he has to be a quarterback you can win with. Now, for a quarterback you can win with, maybe he does at some point need to stretch the ball down the field. But if you don't need to stretch the ball down the field and you're up with 2 minutes to go in the game and you're going to force a team to go 80 yards, you do what you did last week. And whether you like that or not, that's okay. But as a coach, I'm looking for a win. I don't care how. There's no such thing as an ugly win. So whatever I got to do, if it's take a couple shots downfield or protect the ball. That's why last week the 3rd and 11 call is the only thing I didn't like.
Yeah, you disagreed with what Ken had to say in the morning.
I did, because taking care of your team.
What did Ken say again?
Well, he was more on the thing that the Browns weren't basically those last couple drives too conservative, didn't take care of his team.
Big football guy, Ken Carmen.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Big football guy. Big football guy, Ken Carmen.
Well, I get it.
I want him to know that you are disagreeing with his thought process here, because he's got great respect for you, Coach. If I said it, it wouldn't happen. He's got great respect for you, Coach.
Same thing for me, to him.
Tell me the disagreement here.
So my thing is that you do whatever you got to do. So I thought Kevin Stefanski did a great job in those last 4 or 5 drives. And the amount of backlash I've gotten off that, that's okay. But for me, I don't care what happened for 3.5 quarters. I don't care what happened, whatever happened during the game. As a coach, you're looking at that particular 4 quarters. For those particular 4 quarters, you had a chance to win with your defense on the field for the other team with an injured quarterback, with a banged up offensive line. And I know they had played well, but you're playing percentages as well sometimes. You take that every time. And I would take the same. So the only call that I had an issue with was the 3rd and 11. Now, the problem is with what Ken said, I don't think he's wrong either. And there's ways to look at it. There's different ways. That's why coaches hired to get fired, right? Because you have to make those calls in those situations.
3rd and 11 was disastrous.
I didn't like that call, but
and that might have, by the way, taken away the whole what he did in the first 2 downs of that actually seemed like it was on the right track.
Well, I will say this: there's the fine line of, boy, that was a brilliant call. What a great call by that coach. He did. Everybody thought they were going to run the ball. The line between an innovative, respected offensive line or a call and a stupid call there you have it right there. If they complete that pass, everybody's saying what a great call it is.
Nope, I'm still not. I'm a process versus outcome. It's not very analytically driven by me, but a lot of times I am process versus outcome. And in that moment, if you're trying to pull off that, and the problem is there's so many different problems with it, like the idea that they didn't trust Dillon to throw the ball deep, and he hadn't been successful in throwing the ball deep. Like all of these scenarios, like you have to.
But I don't think it's trust. I don't think it's trust. I don't think it's trust.
Well, we'll find out this week. But in that game, trust is the right word, because in that game they didn't trust him to do that in that game. Like if they had, they would have shown it.
Well, they always talk about like we have to be more aggressive. More aggressive doesn't always mean throwing the ball deep. For me, aggressive is what do we got to do to win?
I just look at it like some days, like when I go golfing, like yesterday I went and played a quick 9, and when I was out there and I was hitting my hybrid really well, and sometimes my hybrid it's a hit or miss, right? But I went out there and my hybrid, at first hybrid I hit it very nicely, and I'm like, all right, I guess the hybrid works today. Like sometimes you gotta find out what works in any given day, and with them on that in that game, they looked at Dillon Gabriel and they thought the deep pass wasn't really working that day. And so then why in the most pivotal part of the game, you convert that first down and it's basically blouses. Why in that are you pulling out the club that hadn't been working all day?
Well, it's just like when you get to you get to a par 4 and it's 300 and 290 yards, you're like, I shouldn't pull out my driver. No one thinks I'm going to pull.
Always let the big dog eat, Coach. This is where we disagree. Always let the big dog eat.